Well, good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. We'll be starting very shortly. It's super cold here right now. It's minus 22 Celsius by my thermometer outside. Okay, it's 6. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Okay, last time we did the Sutta Majjhima 49, where the Buddha had the discussion with Bhakka the Brahma, and I thought it would actually be good to do the Majjhima 50, because that has a number of interesting angles to it. It's the sutta where the Venerable Moggallana has an encounter with Mara, and it brings up a number of interesting points. First of all, let's discuss a little bit about who Mara is. Mara is the tempter. He occurs in a number of incidents, but most importantly, he confronted the Buddha on his enlightenment night and tried to distract him from attaining the goal. Mara is actually a high-level Dewa. He dwells in the highest sensual heaven, the realm of those who delight in the creation of others, Parinimata Vasavati Dewas. It says he rules over 1/4 of that realm like a rebel prince. So he conceives himself as being the Lord of Samsara and tries to prevent any being from attaining enlightenment and escaping from Samsara. He's often compared to the Christian Satan, but this comparison is of only limited value. Whereas Satan was a rebel angel who was confined to hell, Mara is not in hell. He's in his normal abode, is in the highest of the sensual heavens. His principal failing, one could say, is pride and arrogance. And he doesn't really use, he doesn't really want to create misery. He wants just to prevent people from escaping samsara. So his first weapon is usually distraction through sensual desire. And if that fails, he does resort to terror, as he did on the Buddha's Enlightenment night, bringing forth an army of demonic forms to attack the Buddha. Now, in this particular sutta that we're discussing now, Moggallana, who's of course one of the Buddha's 2 chief disciples, the disciple renowned for psychic powers, he was at the time doing walking meditation, and he felt a disturbance in his abdomen, and he says to himself, what is wrong with my belly? It feels like it's full of beans. So he uses his psychic power to look inside himself and see what the problem is. and he sees that Mara has perched himself inside his intestines, causing him distress. So when he tells Mara, "I see you, Mara. I know you, Mara." Mara then exits from his mouth and stands by the doorpost, and Moggallana still recognizes and sees him. The commentary has a additional dialogue that Moggallana said to Mara. He said, "You are you should be ashamed of yourself. Normally, Devas find the human body loathsome and evil smelling, but here you are, a high Deva, urbane and refined, and you've perched yourself in a loathsome place." So he rebukes Mara and he warns him that he's making bad karma by attempting to torment the arhants. And he tells a story that constitutes the bulk of the sutta. Moggallana tells a story about a past age of the earth during the time of Kakusanda Buddha, who was the first Buddha of this world system, when Moggallana himself was the Mara. Now, this is a point that needs to be made if people are many of you are probably aware of this, but the various important Devas and Brahmas, like Mahabrahma, Saka, Mara, these are more like offices than individual names. That when a Mara finishes his karma runs out and he passes away from being Mara, then a new Mara arises in the world. So there's always a Mara, but not the same one. The Mara of the Buddha's time, the Mara who confronted Moggallana, bears the name of Papima. That's his name, but Moggallana was named Dusi when he was the Mara. He was the Mara Dusi. Then there's a kind of a strange passage where he tells the current Mara. I'm looking for the passage so I get the detail right. Not there. That Mara Dusi was his nephew at that time. Now this in itself is strange, and it's not explained, and it's not even the commentary doesn't go into it. But Devas do not reproduce sexually, so it's hard to understand what the meaning of being someone's nephew amongst Devas constitutes. There is mention of Devas having sons and daughters, and this is explained in one commentary that when a Deva arises in the world, they just appear fully formed, and sometimes they will appear seated in the lap of another Deva, and then they're considered to be that Deva's son or daughter. There's also mention of another character here which is another one of this family unit, is the mother of Dusi, who would be the sister of Moggallana, which is her name was Kali, which is spelled the same as the Hindu deity. Which is a very odd coincidence, perhaps, because the Hindu deity Kali doesn't appear in the literature at this time. She was a more medieval deity, but the idea that this sister of Mara, no details are given about her, but the name Kali means the black one. There are a number of Kalis that are mentioned in the name was not an uncommon one in the Pali literature. There's a number of Kalis that are mentioned, and mostly most of them don't have any sort of demonic association. The Kali just might mean dark hair or dark skin, but in one case there was a woman who was a cemetery attendant who at one time made a drinking bowl out of a human skull. So that sounds kind of tantric, and you could see possibly an early idea of the later deity Kali. In any case, it's odd that she's just mentioned in passing. The Dusi says, "My sister was Kali, and you were her son and my nephew at that time." Then he tells a story about how, as Mara Dusi, he tormented the bhikkhus and the arahants of that time. As I said, Kakusanda was the Buddha, and he had two chief disciples, Vidura and Sanjiva. All the Buddhas follow this archetypal pattern and have many similarities between them, and they always have two chief disciples. And the Mara Dusi, the previous birth of Moggallana, tried to corrupt the bhikkhus in Kakusanda's following, but he was not having success, so he decided to try and bother them indirectly by putting ideas into the mind of the villagers. First, he tried raising animosity towards the Sangha amongst the bhikkhus. The commentary says that he started the idea among them that the bhikkhus were misbehaving and breaking the rules. As when they went into the village for alms, they were met with verbal abuse from the villagers. And at that time, Kakusanda Buddha gave the bhikkhus instruction that they should practice loving kindness meditation, metta, to overcome the feeling of animosity. So this didn't work. It didn't corrupt the bhikkhus or put them off their practice. So Dusi tried to take the opposite tack, and he had the villagers, instilled in the villagers excessive devotion to the bhikkhus, so that they praised them and honored them and bowed to them with joined hands. They're hoping to inflame the pride and arrogance of the bhikkhus. And that didn't work either, because Kakusandi gave the bhikkhus contemplations on the foulness of the body and the impermanence of all formations, etc., to overcome feelings of desire and pride. So we have here this is one of the very few stories, antidotes to overcome the failings of the worldly winds of praise and blame. There's the 8 worldly states or winds include praise and blame, which are among the most pernicious. You get praised and you feel elated and happy and blown up with pride, and you get blamed the next day, criticized, you feel sad and dejected and downcast. And a good practice is to not pay attention to praise or blame, and not let them affect you, but to remain equanimous. So now the Maradusi was quite frustrated, and he followed the Buddha when he was walking with his disciple Vidura, and he picked up a cobblestone and threw it at Vidura's head, causing a cut and the flowing of blood. The Buddha Kakusandi then turned around to look at him, and it says that he turned around with the elephant look, which is another odd feature. It's one of the physical characteristics of a Buddha, is that when they turn to look at something, they don't just turn their head, they turn their whole body. And the commentary says it's because their necks are not flexible. This is called the elephant look. So that he turns his whole body at Dusi, and Dusi at that moment dies or passes away from this world, and goes to hell. He falls to hell. The commentary makes it explicit and makes a point that the Buddha didn't kill Mara. He died from his own karma. And when he appeared in hell, he had a human body with a fish's head, and it was enormous size, so that his head and feet touched the ceiling and floor of the fiery chamber in Avicii hell. And the hell wardens stuck red hot iron spears into his body, and they drove them in, and they told him, when you feel the spears touch inside your body, you'll know that 1,000 years have passed. So now remember, this is Moggallana. So he in his previous life, he was Dusi the Mara, and then he went to hell. So, but eventually he found his way back to human form and became Moggallana. So this is a very important feature of the Buddhist idea of karma and rebirth. There is no such thing as an eternal damnation. Even the very worst possible existence eventually ends, and one can have another chance. And eventually he became Moggallana, chief disciple of the Buddha. The sutta ends with a series of verses, mostly there's quite a few verses. It goes on for like 3 pages in the print version, and they're mostly about Moggallana saying, warning Mara, you're going to suffer horrible karma for tormenting the noble ones. There's one, I'll read this one verse out because it seems totally out of place, and it may be like a late transcribing error or something. This verse that doesn't really have anything to do with anything else gets popped in there. But it's quite and this is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. In the middle of the ocean there are mansions aeon lasting, sapphire shining, fiery gleaming, with clear translucent luster, where iridescent scene complex intricate rhythms. So quite a beautiful image, but it doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything else in the sutta. What Bhikkhu Bodhi translates as sea nymphs are acharas, or celestial nymphs, minor female devas of the normally found in Tawatingsa heaven. So in this sutta, just to kind of sum up the main points, in this sutta we have a very unusual and interesting glimpse into the nature of the being Mara, by looking at first of all Mara in the present time, or at the time of the Buddha, appearing in Moggallana's belly, and then later Moggallana telling the story about an ancient past when he was the Mara, and performing acts to torment the bhikkhus and the arahants, and then suffering in hell because of it. So it seems like being a Mara must require some good karma initially to be able to be reborn into the heaven world, but then by the nature of being a Mara, you tend to make a lot of really bad karma and end up taking a bad birth. So we have samsara as the wheel where beings go up and down, is well illustrated in this story. So I'll stop there, and we'll have a look at what's going on in the chat. It seems to be quite busy already. Let me just adjust it so I can read it more easily. Okay, first question: is it mentioned if there's only one Mara at a time in a given universe, or are there many Maras at the same time? There's only one chief Mara, but he has an army of disciples, lesser devas that serve him, that are sometimes called Maras as well, in the plural. But in any one universe, there's only one chief Mara. What does Mara gain from keeping people in samsara? Does he have co-conspirators? I think that it's just his the way I interpret it is that it would hurt his pride to have anyone escape, because he's in the highest sensual heaven. He imagines himself to be the lord of the whole of the sensual world, and if he sees anyone escaping, that they're like leaving his dominion. He has co-conspirators. As I said previously, there's lesser beings that serve him, that are sometimes called Maras. How many years are there usually between two Buddhas in human years? The time between Buddhas is not specified anywhere. There's a tradition that I've heard of in Burma that they say there's 5,000 years between Buddhas, but I'm not sure where they get that number from. But in any case, it's a very long time. Are any meditative absorptions required in the realm, as is a requirement in Brahma and Arupa realm? No. The meditative attainments lead to the rebirth in the Brahma world, not in the Deva world. What's required for birth in the Deva world is the excellent morality plus generosity. For requirement of jhana to be born in Brahma realms is a prerequisite just to get into jhana once or to do it regularly until death. There has to be some degree of a mastery of jhana and that's still present at the time of death. That if someone practices jhana in their youth and then neglects it and they lose their jhana, then they won't. That doesn't lead to a Brahma world rebirth. And the degree of mastery depends on what type of Brahma you end up becoming. In each, the Brahma world is divided up in various ways. There's the 4 levels corresponding to the 4 jhanas, but within each of the 4 levels, there's different grades of Brahmas within that level that are determined by the degree of mastery of the jhana. Regarding the family life of devas, it occurs to me that terms like nephew or father or grandfather can be used out of respect or affection without being literally true. Yeah, that's possible. They might have had some honorary association and using terms like sister and nephew. Hi, Kristen. Okay. Now my computer's kind of screwing up here. Okay. Have you been confronted by Mara, Bhante? Mara doesn't bother with a small fry. He goes after Buddhas and great disciples and like that. I should also mention, in talking about Maras, and in this context, that the commentary does make a distinction between different uses of the word Mara. There is Mara Dewa Putta, which is the being Mara, Mara the Dewa, but there's also Mara used figuratively as a personification of defilement without actually being real. So that type of Mara confronts us all. It's a continuation of the previous comment about relationships. Like someone calling an elderly man grandfather, or a beatnik addressing someone of the previous generation as dad or daddy-o. I think you might be aging yourself with that reference. What kind of actions result in being reborn with a male-female body? Yeah, there is some different opinions about that found in the text. There's nothing in the suttas that explicitly talks about that, but there is in the commentaries. There's 2. That's one view. Another view is that it depends on the what would you say, like the strength of the sex faculty. Every being has either a male or female sex faculty, and if the sex faculty in the male is weak, then you could be reborn as a female in the next life, and vice versa. Regarding Mara's weapons, are we as practitioners to expect Mara's weapons at what point in our practice? You don't really have to worry about Mara bringing out the heavy ammunition until you're close to arahantship. But the Mara as a personification or simile of defilements, they're present all the way through. Do you think there's any merit in the single life interpretation of dependent origination? I do, if it's not exclusive. I think I know there's these some people take it as being total negation of the 3-life interpretation, but I think that they both work at different time scales. I don't really see a contradiction between them. So it actually works on the momentary level, and also across lifetimes. Being born in Nimanarati, Parinimata and Yama. There's quite a lot of information about other heavens, but not these. Yeah, there's almost nothing really about the Yama world. It's very, very sparse details. As for the two higher heavens, the Nimanarati and Parinimata, I'm not aware of any mention of specific prerequisites to be reborn there, other than the general quality of the karma that it being makes. So the higher heavens would be available to one who makes, a higher, more excellent karma, a higher degree of generosity and scrupulous in keeping the precepts. There's also mention of rebirth by aspiration. As long as you have making good karma, you can combine that with an aspiration. May I be reborn into Sita heaven, for example, which a lot of Asians actually aim to be reborn there. Asian Buddhists, they think attaining Nibbana is too difficult in this age, and that it'd be better to be reborn into Sita and sit it out for a while and sit at the feet of the Bodhisattva. Why didn't... Oh, sorry. This interface is jumping around on me. I've lost my place. Okay, why didn't the Buddha turn... Oh, it jumped again. Why didn't the Buddha turn Mara into an Arahant to relieve Mara from endless suffering? Or is Mara necessary for realizing attainment? Well, the Buddha can't turn anyone into an Arahant. He hasn't got that power. There is something like that in a story from... not from the Pali, but it's in the Asokavada, which is a Sanskrit text of the Sarvastivada tradition, where a bhikkhu Arahant, whose name I'm not recalling at the moment, at the time of King Asoka, had a confrontation with Mara and ended up converting Mara, and Mara became a stream winner. So he could no longer fulfill the duties of Mara, and that would mean a new Mara would have to arise. Are human beings in different world systems different from us? Well, we don't have any descriptions of beings in other world systems. I think the assumption in the general assumption in the Pali cosmology is that human beings are the same everywhere, but it's not really explicit. There's actually no discussion much about other world systems. There is a little bit of details about the other islands, the world islands that surround Mount Sinaru. There's 4 islands, and we live on Jambudipa, the southern island, and the other islands, they look somewhat different than us. The shape of the head is different. So possibly in other world systems they're even more different. Not to oversimplify, but what would be the important elements of the sutta that a lay practitioner could take from the sutta? Well, the one really salient practice point is Kakusanda's instructions to the bhikkhus to overcome praise and blame. That if one is suffering from blame, people are criticizing you and insulting you, you need to practice loving kindness to overcome that. And if you find yourself getting a swollen head from too much praise, you need to take up meditations that emphasize the undesirable aspects of samsara, like the repulsiveness of nutriment, the foulness of the body, the impermanence of all samsaric formations. From reading suttas, we can see that Mara is aware of Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Why isn't he worried about going to hell at the end of his lifespan? Short-sightedness. I mean, why human beings have even shorter lifespans, and how many of them just live heedlessly? Does having jhana from meditation on Brahma Viharas result in the same liberation wisdom than jhanas from Sannyasati, please? I'm not sure really. I think that question may be a bit off. The Brahma Viharas or jhana by themselves are not really sufficient for the rising of wisdom. That requires the investigation of vipassana. The Brahma Viharas do lead into jhana. For couples from completely different cultures, countries, is there a common connection that leads them to find each other, even though it's very improbable? Yeah, very likely. And particularly if there's an attraction immediately, this is a sign that there's some previous, what's called love at first sight. This is a sign that there's some previous karmic connection. Are we doing mind management of our defilements into more exalted mental states? Yeah, we're trying to transform our mental states into more refined or exalted ones. One must recluse to reach it. Yes, there's no other way. Correct. Yeah, renunciation is very important for realizing nibbana. Okay, so I think I'll leave it there for today, and we'll do something different next week. And hope you're all doing well.